as a woman and a mother throughout the symbolic journey under the effect of racism. Morrison brings back the dead in the novel to establish the living embodiment of C's mother love and the painful past of enslavement. So it represents never is really destroyed. The result is creating a new type of love which is killing the baby by the mother. Carol Boyce Davis describes Toni Morrison Below, one of the most deliberate problematizing motherhood that I have ever encountered. Numerous themes are there in Morrison's novel, but a classic novel could not have been dreamt up without these themes like racism, sexism, and desire and slavery. In Beloved, theme of choice versus no choice dramatizes the late of what happens when enslaved African American were snatched from their homelands, conditioned to submission of the Middle Passage by rape, impregnant against the will, and forced to relinquish the children to further promote. Morrison's female characters thereafter, one choice she makes on her results in horrific crime of infanticide and isolates her from her community for almost 2 decades. Story of Beloved reveals the brutal scars slavery leaves on the black women because they are women, because they are black, because they are powerless. The characters, the device Morrison employs, and the theme of her memory, healing, and oppression illuminate the plight of the black females attempt to cover the scars. In Beloved, Toni Morrison's narrative is interwoven with the oral tradition of black folk tales. Crimes and cruelties abound from the part of victim and victimizers. Yet her narrative style keeps readers glued to the pages and continues reading with empathy for the flight of the characters. In this murder scene, Morrison touches the social stigma with courage. The scene highlights motherhood, women's pivotal role. From a feminist perspective, Toni Morrison raises the issue of the personal and the political. Morrison seems to see how slavery distorts women's life. Slavery and its dehumanizing power prevent women from performing their sacred roles. In Beloved, she's a bad woman because she murders her own children. She kills them because of her slavery is worse than death. She would rather have her children dead than let them become slaves all their lives. However, people take for granted the existence of slavery and deem it status quo. She, which is the central character Beloved, has been portrayed by Morrison as a human being full of pitfalls and emotions of anger, bitterness, and powerfulness. Morrison's created a history in depicting without sentiment mothers who kill their own children. Thus, she creates a new image of loving mother which acts harshly under the slave system. Toni Morrison has convincingly, successfully, and interestingly depicted the predicament of motherhood, slavery, and exploitation of black women in her world-famous novels like Beloved, Zola, and other novels. So thank you very much to OUCIP, and then Madam Sridevi and the rest of the participants, ladies and gentlemen. And at the same time, I must give my respect to Dr. Shruti Das, who happens to chair some of the session in the conference. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to read my paper in this August conference. Thank you, madam. Hello.
Hello. Have you finished?
Yeah, madam. Thank you. Thank you very much. I've just finished it. Thank you.
Yeah. We still see your PPT.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Just a minute, madam.
Yeah. You just have to say stop sharing. Yeah.
Done it, madam. Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Mahapatra, it was a good paper. But, before I open it for discussion, because we have a lot of time, and I think many participants are ready here to ask some questions. But before that, I just want you to, summarize, like, you were just reading your paper, rather fast. So maybe the participants, maybe missed. So can you just summarize in 2-3 sentences? So and after that, I will open your paper for discussion.
Most of the Toni Morrison's novel, if you take Beloved, you take Sula, they all revolve around one key concept, that's slavery. And that's what I highlighted, taking some of the analysis from different novels. And basically, even she highlighted the slavery happens to be the key concept, but at the same time, she has given importance to the courage laid by the ladies to become a mother. They just suffered from slavery. At the same time, they didn't forget to furnish their work as a mother. That's all what I wanted to convey from my paper. She's a very good writer, and I must convey my regards to Dr. Suti Das, who has advised me a lot to go about this. Thank you very much, madam.
Okay. Any questions from the participants or anybody here? Any questions? Because his study is based on the most famous novels. Beloved is a very famous novel, very difficult novel. The protagonist Sethe, she kills her infant babies in order to save them from slavery. This is a very gruesome act from her part. But when you look at the system, that is slavery, that is by law, by legal code, which is accepted, which is practiced in southern part of America. So if you look at from this point of view, her action of killing her babies, you have to really understand the psyche of that mother, and the horrors she has experienced. So she doesn't want the same experience for her children. So she kills the babies, and one of the babies come back as a ghost, and this ghost haunts her throughout her life. So women are double victims. Mothers are double victims in this system, in the system slavery, that was practiced for almost 200 years in the southern states of America, till the Civil War was fought. It's a good paper, Dr. Mahapatra. Thank you
Thank
so much, and I wish you good luck for your further research in this area. But I, invite anybody because we have time. I see Jyoti, Shivratri, and Charmila, Mahender, Lavanya. Anybody can ask him because you are familiar with the area, African American literature, and Toni Morrison is very, very famous. So
thank you very much, madam, for your suggestive comments on this paper. Of course, my effort, my endeavor would continue to go with this line. And thank you very much for your advice. Can I have some questions?
that's what I'm also waiting.
One observation, not really a question. I'm from this Department working from the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences.
The voice is not audible. I'm sorry. I'm not getting the voice clear.
Am I audible? Now audible?
There is an
You
echo.
are audible, but it's not clear.
There is an echo coming in. There is an echo coming in.
Now it is audible. I'm a bit loud. No?
No.
Shall I switch over to... If I'm audible, can I speak? Am I audible? No?
Yes, madam, you're audible. You can go ahead. Okay. Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Um, Thank you, Dr. Vishnu Varaguru Mahapatra. I'm very impressed with your presentation. It was a very good presentation. And I'm very happy that you did such a wonderful analysis of two novels of Morrison, especially Beloved and Sula. And I really liked the way you presented that motherhood and identity are not mutually exclusive. That's good. And yeah, you were fast, but you were very, very clear. And one thing I just wanted to ask you, if you're talking about slavery, motherhood, Toni Morrison, fine, how would you look at it in the Indian context? How would you take Morrison into your classroom about motherhood, identity, slavery, and about infanticide? These are social problems wherever you go, right? So, how would you look at that and how would you take this into your classroom? How would you teach it in your class? You are, as I understand, you are teaching in a technical university. So, in your class, you teach communication as humanities. So, I want how you would communicate these ideas effectively to your students.
Thank you very much, madam, for your question. What I would do from here is, of course, I will take uh, almost all an excerpt and I'd ask the students to go by analyzing. The first one would be teaching moral lesson, whatever would be the case, the social kind of, you know, the students must have the courage to face the unwanted things that arose in the society. I wish the background noise which are coming in, I'm unable to. Okay. Am I audible, madam? Can you hear me?
Very good.
Yeah, yeah. Now, at the same time, what I would do is I would just classify. I would ask students to classify the words in different headings. If they come under, let us say, you just take them. What are the nouns, adjectives, verbs, synonyms, antonyms? Just pick them up and go on providing. If you take it antonym, go for an opposite. If you take a synonym word, provide similar words. If you find a verb, just use them in sentences. At the same time, but Toni Morrison's novel, they are based on the practical realities of, life of the black women. And I can ask them to create a story and speak the same and just give some characters like as we have discussed, see that we have come across and just keep emphasizing on that particular character and narrate a story. That would be, we have been teaching ELT and we can do lot many exercises based on the stories given by Toni Morrison.
Thank you, Vishnu. And do you think that you could ask them some semiotics articles so that you would show the communication cycle that the emotion in Morrison's novel takes and how they could learn from that and use it in their corporate life?
Okay, thank you, madam.
Thank you very much. I'm so proud. Professor Tom, and then I think the mic will be working.
Ms. Sridevi madam would like to ask a question. Please.
I don't want to ask a question, but I want to take from what Madam here spoke to you just now.
Yeah.
I want to, continue from her. She was asking you about Indian situation.
Yeah.
There is a lot of disturbance. See, she was asking, I understood it as, about the Indian situation where mothers are compelled to, do some, kind of, infanticide because girl children are not accepted in majority of the families. Still in India, mothers are, they're forced to do this. So there in African American society during slavery, there was a situation the mothers willingly sold it to save their children.
A lot many background noise which is really disturbing.
Yes, yes, yes. So, how do you compare? That was a society in the past, some 200 years ago. But now we are in 21st century in India, where mothers are forced to undergo to do this infanticide. How do you look at it?
Now, mostly I gave the answer to the second part of the question, being an ELT teacher.
Yeah,
How could
yeah.
you, I just answered to the second part of the question put by Dr. Das. And that was something like, you can take an extract and start asking students to do certain exercises, which I narrated earlier. Now, if you take this question, what you have said, the kind of, slavery, I don't think we do have slavery there in Indian system. And if you take the girls at all, nowadays, if you take the analysis of the results, you take the studies, if you start analyzing, girls now they are advancing comparing to the gender as far as boys are concerned. Now, you do not have a system where they are being forced to cook inside the home. They are coming forward, be it politics, be it education, be it anywhere. You find the ladies are taking a lead role. And there is less concern at the same time. We can teach them. If you come across situations like this, we have multiple options left with us. We can advise them what to do and how to save themselves from these. And as far as girl infanticide is concerned, now the system, the government is really taking rigorous actions against people, those who are really doing these crimes. I hope I have answered to this question. And there is a drive that you can always, you just inculcate in the mind of the students. Do not get biased and do not, start supporting to things which you do not want to accept. Because now ladies or girls, they are no way inferior to comparing to the boys or to the men in the society.
Okay.
Ma'am,
We address these questions in the classroom. Maybe there will be a change, uh,
yeah,
and we'll have a better society
yeah.
in future in India also. So thank you, Dr. Mahapatra. And thank you, Dr. Shruti. Thank you so much.
Madam, Dr. Das, madam, would you like to say something on this?
Under one observation, well, the Indian scenario that you were talking about is an elite Indian scenario, but the recent times during the COVID-19 migration from the cities to the villages has shown us that infanticide, be it a girl or a boy, is very much there because, as you said, the mother always wants to protect the child, and protection can go to such level that it can be infanticide. And recently, very, very recently, we have seen what the Afghan women have done to their children, thrown them over the barbed wires. So it is a survival instinct. And even if you are a slave or no, this survival instinct is always there with the mother. Identity and survival, they go together. So we cannot say that one is exclusive. So it is inclusive. And you are talking about the urban scenario. In the rural scenario, it's a very, very different India as well. Right? Women do not get so much in scope. Okay, thank you very much. If anyone has any other questions, I don't have any. Thank you, Sri Madam.
Thank you, Dr. Das. Thank you, Dr. Mahapatra.
Okay, thank you and namaskar. Thank you, both of you, Dr. Das and Dr. Madam, Devi Madam. Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to read my paper in this August occasion. Thank you very much.
So,
thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Mahapatra sir. Thank you, Shrutidas ma'am, for all your observations. I would now like to request N. Lavanya ma'am, a research scholar from Salinger Institute of Home Sciences and Higher Education, to present her paper. The title goes with A Far Cry of Refugees, Narrative of Constant Trauma and Oppression. Thank you, ma'am. We welcome you.
Thank you for the warm welcome. Am I audible, ma'am?
Ma'am, you're audible.
I would like to share my PPT. Just a
Sure,
minute.
ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, are you sharing your PPT?
Yes. Yes, may I start?
Sure, ma'am. Go.
My
Sridevi,
paper.
can you start the presentation?
This is
Sridevi,
the.
ma'am?
My paper is titled A Far Cry of Refugees, Narrative of Constant Trauma and Oppression. Refugee crisis. Humans hold an aspiration towards life even at times of troubles with the hope that they have a home to return to and people to care about them. The refugees all over the world are denied this privilege of clinging on to a hope in life because they are destined to live with the fear of losing all that they have with them. They are oppressed and discriminated in their own land and are left with nothing but a body that breathes after an ill treatment that takes away their dignity and self respect. This paper focuses on voicing out the pain of an African refugee, Sandra, who later settles in America but goes through a never ending trauma of her haunting past. It not only explains the pain of her childhood of going through a genocide, but also the aftermath of the trauma that follows her even after years and years of resistance and survival. The trauma, nightmares, insecurity, fear of death, loss of identity, problems of assimilation, and all the other troubles of refugees are discussed with a select memoir, How Dare the Sunrise? Memoirs of a War Child by Sandra Uringukmana. Refugees, at one point of time in their life, are forced to leave everything they own and to lead a life in an unknown land with empty hands. This makes them human beings who can lead a life only by seeking help from others. Fighting hard every day for survival and basic needs, they live with denied dignity and self respect. The rough journey continues even after settling in another nation, for the troubles and trauma never leave their life wherever they go. Even when a few of them manage to earn back all the wealth that they have lost, they are still haunted by the death of their dear ones in the war. Once, when a human becomes a refugee, it is not easy for him or her to die forgetting that identity, for the impact is very hard on them and their family. This paper elaborates on the multiple troubles faced by the refugees in different phases of their life with reference to the experience of Sandra in her memoir, How Dare the Sunrise. Refugees are often referred to as human rights violations made visible. They were being ill treated in many ways, but had nobody to question the oppressors. The life of a refugee revolves around a circle of fear and loss. They wake up and proceed with their daily life knowing that they will have to face death any minute. Whenever they forget about the dangers of their own death, they are haunted by the memories of the brutal death of their loved ones. In the select memoir, Sandra narrates her story of becoming a refugee, suffering in the camp, going through a genocide, struggling to settle in America, and fighting hard to attain peace and overcome her traumatic past. She goes through this trauma of losing her little sister Deborah since her childhood. It is the loss of her sister that affects her more than the brutality of the genocide she has gone through as a child. She carries the pain of loss in every moment of her life, which makes it difficult for her to enjoy anything in life. Quoting Sandra, I couldn't imagine the world without Deborah in it, my beautiful little sister, my soulful young friend who thought I could do no wrong. Unquote. Sandra is not able to tolerate the fact that Deborah died so soon and was not able to grow up with her. The pain affects all the family members and is a reflection of pain in all the refugees in the world. Pain and fear in refugees. What makes the pain of the refugees deeper than the pain of the others is that the incurable pain is infused along with fear. Every minute of their life, they live with the fear of death and deadly experiences. They have nothing to lose except their life that is very fragile to be safely protected. Sandra not only mourns the death of her sister, but also fears that there are chances of forgetting her. Quoting Sandra, I feel as if the older I get, the more I am losing her. Unquote. She keeps on regretting the fact that she has lost her sister and feels guilty that she has survived the genocide instead of Deborah. Whenever her mother mentions her as the last child, she feels agitated. She hates it when people talk as if Deborah never existed. While the others in the family tried to cope up with their pain by avoiding talking about Deborah, Sandra wanted to repress her guilt by talking about her and remembering her then and there. A major problem faced by all refugees in the thought of being unwanted is the thought of being unwanted everywhere. They are hated and oppressed in their own homeland and are considered as unnecessary burdens in the city they move to live in. Sandra and her family faced troubles in their home at Congo, were attacked by the rebels at Burundi camp where they took refuge, and were also not completely accepted in America where they even managed to gain a citizenship. They had nowhere to go and were given the only option of living a life in which humans around them considered them as unwanted beings. The problem of statelessness was always accompanied by the problem of voicelessness. Though they were always holding enormous pain inside, they were never allowed to express them in words. Quoting Stonebridge, losing one's language is not only to be denied a linguistic anarchage to nation and tradition. It also means losing the naturalness of reactions, the simplicity of gestures, the unaffected expression of feelings. As explained by Stonebridge, the refugees are even denied the right to speak in their mother tongue, which makes them unable to transfer their real pain into words that causes them stress and trauma. Sandra and her family had a peaceful life for a few years at Congo, but still they were not considered Congolese by others in living in the nation. They belonged to Banyamulenge, a minority tribe in Rwanda, a mountain in South Kivu, but considered Ugaira as their home. Hatred was the problem of all the troubles, and this hatred for Rwandans among the Congolese citizens was only exemplifying with passage of time. Even the children in the city had negative influences, and Sandra was verbally attacked by her co students at school. Even during the time of escape from Congo to a refugee camp, there were many little children with guns who wanted to kill them. They were not in an age that was matured enough to understand the real problem of the situation. They only knew that they had to hate the Rwandans for no reason, and they were very stubborn and did a very good job at what they were taught to do so with no reason to think about it. This shows the intensity of killing humanity by spreading hatred. Sandra always wondered what wrong she did to deserve such brutality. The reason for all the hatred was that they belonged to a particular tribe. Sandra hates the fact that they had to seek help from others for even their basic necessities. At the camp, she was unhappy to witness her strong parents in a helpless state. She was grateful for the help offered to them, but still, she did not like the fact that they felt like beggars, though they were not actually treated like one. When the family was getting used to the routine at the Darfur camp, there was an attack that completely ruined their life, and it was the genocide. The genocide was a brutal one in which the rebels killed everyone, irrespective of their gender and age. They knew that these people were helpless and were not of any harm to them, but still they did not want them to simply exist in their land. The cruelest part of the attack was that the men of hatred were not guilty at all for killing innocent lives. God has given you to us, they chanted. The men seemed to think they were on a mission from God to massacre us, states Sandra. They lied to themselves that they were killing in the name of God, which was mere stupidity because no God wants hatred in the world. Sandra was running away to escape from death and find her family, not sure of who else has survived along with her. The brutal genocide follows her in her memory throughout her life. The genocide was something that nobody should experience as a child. Quoting Sandra, limbs, bones, and bloody bodies lay everywhere. I smelled burning flesh. Witnessing this incident and losing her sister in the genocide, Sandra goes through trauma and nightmare even after settling in America, which is miles and miles away from the camp. Sandra and her family go through the problems of cultural gap in assimilation after settling in America. There is a need in them to adopt the new culture and also cling on to their own culture at the same time, which makes the process of assimilation even more difficult for them. At first, looks tur- Sandra looks turn against her and she gets bullied for having a short hair. I want to fit in and look like everyone else. I thought the wig would be the answer to the problem, states Sandra. Later, Sandra realizes that the American look cannot solve her problem of fitting in because there was a greater problem of race that was not easily solvable. Still, she continued to find ways to merge in with the Americans to reduce the troubles of getting alienated. The generation gap between Sandra and her parents also brings in barriers for Sandra's assimilation process. She was jammed between the traditional parent rules and the American culture. She somehow manages to convince her parents and persuade her dreams and desires. Sandra, during her days at Horton College, New York, begins to strongly realize the insecurity of being black and goes to the extent of not feeling beautiful at all. Her sophomore year was filled with racial chasms and made her live in an uncomfortable environment. Staying in the hostel made it harder for her, and she starts to miss home. That is when she was caught up with the past again. Her nightmares grew stronger, shattering images from the night of the massacre. She had brutal nightmares of revisiting the camp and crying at the bloody scene. Quoting Sandra, I had experienced nightmares in the past, but they began to grow stronger, shattering images flooding back from the massacre. Unquote. Once, she had a dream of walking along a row of caskets trying to feel Deborah's energy, and that makes her feel sad that she cannot even visit her sister's grave as it did not even exist. She keeps on having nightmares every day and ends up waking up screaming with her whole body shaking. The trauma of the past hits her hard that she does not sleep at all, fearing the nightmares. Pretty soon, the nightmares hit during the day as flashbacks, even while wide awake. Quoting Sandra, I would be sitting in class and a bloody image from the massacre would come assaulting my mind. Unquote. She lost her sleep and stayed up all night, which made her even more sick. There was also personality changes of becoming depressed and lethargic. All she could think about was the brutality of the night of the genocide, the gunshots, her sister's death, gunshots in her mother's stomach, too many deaths, burning bodies, running away from death, which was very near, and all other images of the night were lingering in her head. She was not able to study, though she felt that getting educated was very important in her life. The cultural practices of not talking about one's feelings to the family members intensified her trauma because they were the ones who can understand the real problem as they have
Miss
gone.
Lavanya,
Yes,
uh,
ma'am.
can you share the other slides also so that the participants will get to see one by one?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to disturb you, but
It's okay, ma'am.
yeah.
Sandra felt that she could not talk about genocide with anybody else as they could never understand. Sandra, after going through tremendous troubles, comes up with two remarkable decisions in life, which helps her cope up with the trauma. She decides to visit the refugee camp with her sisters to confront and conquer all her repressed fear. During her visit, she sees that nothing has changed for the people in the camp. They were in that position of seeking help from others for all their needs. They did not even realize that there was an option of living a life outside the camp. The hope for life that Sandra and her sisters had in their eyes was missing in the eyes of the people living in the camp. They were stuck in a routine life of hunger and fight for hunger. Quoting Jacobson, refugees are often unable to utilize their human capital, such as skills and experience acquired in their home countries, because they are denied permission to work, lack of appropriate credentials, or are faced with discrimination at their workplace. The sisters were not able to give them the much needed hope in a one-day visit. Instead, they were
Okay,
able.
Ms. Lavanya, can you conclude, because we have two more participants
Yes,
to
ma'am.
do the presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
I'm about to end it now.
yes, yes, yes.
I would like to conclude with Sandra's quote that says, I want to open myself to people of all races, culture, and faith. This is one quote which gives the solution for all the problems of inhuman activities happening all over the world. And love is one solution that can break all the barriers of inequality. Love is the one solution that can solve millions of problems in the world. It is love and respect for each other that can make the world a better place to live and right. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to thank all the organizers for this great opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, Miss Lavanya, it was a good paper. I liked the way you read it, and your research also about this memoir. It shows your interest. Yeah, I hope you continue your research in this field. Now, this paper is open for discussion. Anybody has questions? Please open your audio and also video, and please ask.
How would you? I'm Jagriti Lavanya. I'm from Jodhpur, Police University, Jodhpur.
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
draw an analogy with the status of the Afghan refugees at the moment?
Uh, According to, in my opinion, refugees all over the world are facing the same problems. It is a universal problem of lack of humanity, and they are in a situation where they cannot live where they are. It is their home. Afghan is their home, but they are not in a very happy environment at Afghan because they have to escape from that. There are so many restrictions for them, and women especially, they are double marginalized or even triple marginalized in many societies when they become refugees, and they have to escape from the place. But like I said, this paper deals with the aftermath of escaping from the nation. Once they become refugees, they should also be ready to cope up with all the troubles that they would face again and again, and it is an unending trouble throughout their life. And even after all the troubles end, and few of them settle in a few countries like Canada and America are open to help refugees, and even when they end up there, there is trauma, and sometimes the trauma is transgenerational. Even the childs who are born as Canadian situations, they go through the troubles of their parental trauma. So this is the situation of all the refugees.
So, what is the status of these refugees in the country where they are given refuge? Are they refugees forever, or are they second-rate citizens, or are they embraced as citizens of that land? Thank you.
Uh, Gaining a citizenship is a one in a million opportunity. Actually, many of them end up in the camp itself, and the worst situation is that some of them cannot even seek the camp. It is more like escaping from death and facing death again. The journey itself is a bizarre one. Even people with a lump amount of money are not able to reach the destination, even the camp of the destination, and even in the way. They get raped by other soldiers, and men are taken away by the soldiers to become Taliban's or the other army which is in power, and this is a difficult situation. Even reaching the camp is difficult, and getting the citizenship is another very difficult opportunity. Only a few get the opportunity of becoming citizens of another country.
Thank you so much, Lavanya, for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, you're on mute, ma'am.
Yes, you have done a good presentation. Thank you, Lavanya, and good luck for your future. Do
Thank
good
you.
research and go. Okay. And next
Thank you,
candidate
ma'am.
is
Thank you, Lavanya ma'am, for your presentation. Thank you, Sridevi ma'am, for your valuable comments. And now we are pleased to invite Dr. V. Vijaya ma'am from Telangana Social Welfare Residential Degree College to present her paper on racial outbursts of the Pecola breed love in the torrent Morrison's The Bluest Eyes.
Good afternoon, Sridevi ma'am, and other professors who are in the conference, and my co-presenters. A very good afternoon, one and all. Today, my topic is racial outburst of the Pecola breed law in the Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. I have chosen this title. The reason is that according to historic evidences, black people were first to get victimized as slaves, being racially discriminated and considered inferior to the whites. This obsession with color, entangling it with dignity, honor, class, etc., this shows the design of Western mind that has conditioned world for centuries to believe in the fake ideology. So the very idea of race leads to self-hatred and self-loathing to the protagonist, Pecola Breedlove, which becomes ailment in the lives of the characters. The protagonist of the novel is an image of vandalization in the racist society. Being black assumes herself as purposeless and ugly, and her assumption was proved in many places where she was not given importance and she was not allowed to access to mingle with others. Racism within the race is most deplorable as she is affected both by the whites and her clan members. This is a challenge encountered by many black people, maybe because of the stereotypes imbibed very cunningly for the socio-economic benefit of world superpowers, that is, European superpowers, have to put on guilt for the thought they brood over for generations, that is, racial discrimination based on melanin of the skin. So, being a black woman with an unacceptable face and deprived of love and care by the family is a curse. This is the psychological state that people are was into because of established stereotype racism. And my focus, my observations is on how Piccola, being a black woman, has become a prey within the community level, which is also universal plight of black women and women from the deprived communities. Piccola was desperate to have a pair of blue eyes as a solution to escape from the discrimination, to escape from the reality, and to patch up with a new identity of possessing blue eyes, which means a matter of dignity and acceptance in her discriminated community. Piccolo wants to be loved, and so is the reason for wanting a blue eyes, but in reality, she doesn't deserve to be for such wishes. I quote from the Toni Morrison's novel: each night, without fail, she prayed for blue eyes. Fervently a year she had prayed, although somewhat discouraged. She was not without hope. To have something as wonderful as that happen would take a long, long time. Drawn in this way into the abiding conviction that only a miracle could relieve her. She would never know her beauty. She would only see what there was to see, the eyes of the people. She wanted to be the perceptible by changing her appearance by substituting her blackness at a larger level. Had she had blue eyes, she would have been given preference and she would have given importance by the parents Pauline and Julie because she was not loved by them and do not have the experience of being loved. This represents that her escape from oppression within the family. Pecola's transition from innocent little girl to become insane starts from within the community level. Even her own mother is a victim of race as she gives preference to the white girl rather than her own daughter. In an incident, she confronts the fisher girl and taunts Pecola by saying, "Beautiful." The poor Pecola completely comprehends that she was neither loved nor wanted by her parents. It was deteriorating effect on the mental condition of a little girl. Racial discrimination plays an important role in African American communities. Pauline has a major influence on Pecola. Though her father violates her brutally and is a reason to drive Pecola insane, Pauline used to Pauline used to be the close to Pecola, but Pauline's disdain for herself and keep kind of living made Pecola to wipe away her dreams. However, the reaction towards a newborn child was different compared to other mothers, and the same was shifted to Pecola. The reason for her indifferent attitude towards Pecola is she looks very much, her daughter looks very much similar to Pauline, dark in color. She says Pecola that she has a beautiful head full of pretty hair, but Claude she looks ugly. Pauline appears to be a good mother who takes care of her children, but in reality she did not to look after household and starts living with the fishes. As a black woman, she too faced lots of pain and oppression in separation, escapes, and she wanted to escape her pain. She wanted to escape from her reality when she is at work. Fiction mansion has become a source of relief to get away from problems. Holland got influenced by the life of Fisher Mansion she adores the cleanliness, do not want any of her family members to disturb her smooth going life, nor she do not want to spend with them. Pecola is even more dark than the native people and other children takes easily chance to tease or ridicule the dark-skinned Pecola and blame her for any trivial reason. Her companion Maureen was given importance and most popular at school as she was because she has a fair of complexion. Claudia, the narrator, was against of all such dispositions, and she considered the girls who were white in color are preferably why they have been given importance.
Dr.
And
Jyoti,
yes,
can you conclude? Can you conclude? Because, or you summarize your
ma'am.
paper, your argument. Yeah.
Yeah. So the conclusion is a distortion in the psychic person of Piccola is because of imbibed identity and discrimination on the whole as a product of continuous judgment by the society around her. Her insane whims of finding blue eyes and transform her identity is left futile. So what would be the solution for this? So the solution is a collective responsibility of the system on the whole, which creates a deep crater of lack of identity in black women like Piccola. So this stereotype can be healed only when complete acceptance is harvested in the society. Pecola is a defective piece of creation that grew in the psychic gardens of society. So this false identity has to be shattered by complete acceptance and building confidence in the hearts of a black woman. Similar to Pecola, who is alienated by her non-acceptance of skin tone and beauty, which is underrated. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jyoti. I like
Thank
your,
you.
argument, it's not the summary or it is not the character analysis, but you have, directly, looked at the question of the novel, the problem of the novel. So good paper. Now I invite anybody here to ask Dr. Jyoti any questions. We can just take one question. Maybe it's almost 12:50. We just have 10 minutes time, and we have one more paper to go. So if there is anybody for a quick question.
Ma'am, your voice is not clear, ma'am. I couldn't hear anything.
Am I audible? Am I audible? No?
No, ma'am.
Am I audible now?
Maybe, yes, yes, ma'am. Please
Yes,
continue.
ma'am. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, you were talking about some kind of a false identity that Piccola tries to get, and your paper was well presented. I have one question. What is the central question of your paper?
Yeah. So the acceptance and equality was not intact in the African culture. So if she had been given the acceptance and equality, and if they have abolished the racial discrimination and stereotypical attitudes which were imposed by the clan members or the community members, she wouldn't have been under the oppression or suppression. So in such a case, if she had been given such a chance, in such a case she do not run around or else desire for blue eyes and in an attempt to impress the people around her.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
you are talking about something which everybody has said. What is new? What is your central question and what kind of nuance that you are trying to project? What is new about the thing?
Yes, ma'am. The acceptance. The people have to accept.
Everybody has said, and it is the same thing that you're saying. What is new in your paper? What do you want to say exactly? What is the central question of your paper?
Yeah, they should not be. See, they should not be any type of discriminations. In such a case, she would have been in secure position only because of that she is an insecure position.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck, Dr. Jyoti. We
Thank you, ma'am,
have
for
the,
this
yes,
opportunity.
yes, yes, yes. We have the last participant, um, Miss Rupambika Patnaik. Are you here, Miss Rupambika Patnaik?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Please present your paper.
Thank you. So I'm about to make my maiden presentation in an international conference, and I'm honored. There's a list of acknowledgements to be made. Still, with all my blessings, all the blessings of my guru and my parents, I start. And the name of my presentation is Battle of the Sexes. Harriet Jacobs and her incidents in the life of a slave girl, and Frederick Douglass in his narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave, are the two most significant works in a genre called fugitive slave narrative. They were written at a similar time. Though Jacobs was hesitant to publish hers, Douglass wrote several versions of his story over several decades. Both of these former slaves managed to escape the North and wanted to expose slavery for the evil thing it was. While they share that common theme in their writing, each of them has a unique perspective and voice which is reflected in their stories. Douglas says, "You have seen how a man was made a slave. You shall see how a slave was made a man." This reveals two important truths. First, slavery is terrible for a man, but it is far more terrible for a woman. Too important, but it primarily recounts physical battles and victories. As a field slave, he was abused and beaten until he decided to stand up against his master, who eventually sent him to Covey, a man whose job is to break slaves. I quote, "During the first 6 months of that year, scarce a week passed without his whipping me. Douglas eventually stands up to him and refuses to be broken. And this is when his journey to freedom really begins." Jacobs, on the other hand, writes, "Slavery is terrible for a man, but it is far more terrible for a woman." Her narrative then is written in a particularly emotional way, and she is not particularly positive. I quote again, "I was struggling alone in the powerful grasp of the North. I was being held captive by the South.
of the domestic slave in the South to being a domestic former slave in the North. While she certainly suffers physical abuse, her story is primarily an emotional one. Because of the story she has to tell, her primary appeal is to women. She is ashamed of herself when she writes about the compromises she had to make for the sake of her children and about her life as a sexual slave. However, she, like Douglas, takes a stand and refuses to let Dr. Flint, a character in the story, to touch her. She too is empowered by this experience and is eventually able to leave. Her voice is much more timid, even apologetic than Douglas. In fact, it often reads like fiction because she hides true identities, including her own in her story. She has been made fearful by her experience. The aim of this paper is to discuss the differences in the male and female perspectives of writing down slave narratives. Jacobs and Douglas simply write the female and the male versions of slavery. The accounts tell equally of depravity and ugliness, although they are different views of the same rotten institution. Like most who managed to escape the shackles of slavery, these two authors share a common bond of tenacity and authenticity. Their voices are different. One is timid, quiet, and like almost apologetic, while the other one is loud, strong, and confident. But they both are authentic. Jacobs is still rather searching for her identity as a free woman and as a mother. Douglas knows who he is, who was made a man. She wants women to speak against the oppression of other women, and he wants all men to do something to stop slavery. Both voices need to be heard. During the last 3 decades of legal slavery in America, from early 1830s to the end of Civil War in 1865, African American writers perfected one of the nation's first truly indigenous genres of written literature, the North American slave narrative. The genre achieved its most eloquent expression in Frederick Douglass's 1845 narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave, and Harriet Jacobs' 1861 Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. Douglas and Jacobs found ways to individualize their narratives and to speak in their own voice in a quest for selfhood that had to be balanced against the aims and values of their audiences. A comparison of the narrative of Douglas and Jacobs demonstrate the full range of demands and situations that slaves could experience. Some of the similarities in the two accounts are a result of prescribed formats that governed the publication of their narratives. The fugitive or freed or ex-slave narrators were expected to give accurate details of their experiences with bondage. Both Douglas and Jacobs included some versions of these required elements, yet so injected personalized nuances that transformed the formulas for their own purpose. Incidents in the life of a slave girl disappeared from notice soon after its publication without a large scale, while Douglas's first book went through 9 editions in its first 2 years and eventually became the standard against which all other slave narratives, even his own later ones, are measured. Douglas's 1845 narrative grew out of the story of enslavement that he honed as a speaker for the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society, whereas Harriet Jacobs began her narrative around 1853, after she had lived as a fugitive slave in the North for 10 years. Gender considerations account not only for many of the differences in the style and genre that we see in Douglas and Jacobs' narrative, but also for the versions of slavery that they endured and the versions of authorship that they were able to shape for themselves in freedom. Douglas was a public speaker who could boldly self fashion himself as the hero of his own story and his adventure. In his first narrative, he combined and equated the achievement of selfhood, manhood, freedom, and voice, which is an Emersonian idealism popular in the 1840s. Whereas Harriet Jacobs was enmeshed in all the trappings of the community, family, and domesticity. She was literally a domestic in the northern employment as well as a slave mother with children to protect, and one from whom some subversive was expected, whether slave or free. Like Douglas and Jacobs, were determined to fight to death for their freedom. Thus, through their narratives, or especially Jacob's. Yeah, ma'am?
Ms. Rupambika, can you summarize, like, since we don't have time, instead of reading your paper, can you just
Ma'am,
give?
I'm just highlighting the points. I'm not getting into the details. I'm just telling the points which on the basis of which I can just differentiate.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, ma'am.
Try
Thank
to
you.
finish. Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
If it comes to the differences, a fruitful place to begin a comparison of these two classic narratives is the title page. What appears there reveals much about the author's strategies and visions. Douglas's title is front and center, announcing his life as an American slave, which is very contradicting. As in, when you say American and when you say yourself as a slave, these two words, they contradict each other. Whereas Jacob's title immediately offers a contrast. It announces that it will not be the story of one person's full life, but selection of incidents. So Jacob's title page contained references that, in fact, Douglas and Jacob, they both have, on the title page, they both have written by himself and written by herself, which makes it much more strong and shows how what they have suffered, what they have gone through their lives as slaves. Like a particularly interesting gender comparison can be made of Douglas and Jacobs through examining the identical disguises that they wore as they maneuvered their way to freedom in the southern port cities that were their homes. The way they disguised themselves, in fact, was very different. So beyond gender and circumstances, we can see the narrative of Jacobs and Douglas as remarkable works of both literature and history, as their works have till date been preserved to provide evidences to the lives of slaves, one from a man's perspective and the other from a woman's perspective. So the autobiographies of Douglas and Jacobs are compared as a distinction can be made between the core values and focus of thought between genders. The struggles encountered, focus of thought, and views on family unit are all differed between male and female slaves. The self-written autobiographies of Frederick Douglass and Harriet Jacobs showcase the thoughts of men and women on these topics and allow for a comparison of experiences of slavery between genders. So I would conclude by saying that Frederick Douglass provides a clear example of male slaves' desire for manliness, whereas Jacobs provides women were also viewed as valuable sources of labor, but they were also viewed as sexual objects available for slaveholders' pleasure. Narratives of both these writers they provide comparable examples that showcase the differences between gender specific experiences of slavery. Men and women both went through the same trials of slavery, yet they experienced them in different ways. While men were on an internal quest for manliness and intelligence, women faced the emotional and family struggles related to the unwanted advances from their masters. Although men and women may have coped with the trials of slavery differently, whether it was through a search of education or the reliance on family members, they both shared same terrible evil slavery. As different as the two sexes may be, one characteristics united them in their quest towards freedom. It was with perseverance that two genders were able, blurring the lines between their differences, and they fought together towards their freedom. And both voices need to be heard. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Rupambika. You have chosen two, texts, one by Harriet Jacobs and the other by Frederick Douglass. And you have looked at the narratives from gender point of view. Okay, it's a very clever choice. Okay, because they were the real slaves. They were under the oppression and suppression, and somehow they managed to study and managed to write the books. Okay, and they became very, very famous in the later ages. Okay, these two books written by these two people. Okay, good paper. Now I don't want to ask you any questions because we don't have time. But if there is anybody, who wants- okay. So I understand, there is nobody to ask you. Maybe, they're all hungry. So, you,
Ma'am, I think
yeah, please, please.
Professor K.V. Christopher. Yeah. Good afternoon, Dr. Sridevi.
ma'am, it is not audible actually.
Am I audible now?
No,
Okay.
it's not here.
Sir, you have to speak very loud in the mic.
Oh God.
Then only we hear.
I have to speak right. Now, am I audible now, ma'am?
Yes, 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 sir.
Okay. Now, this is not a question, maybe it's a question kind of thing. A good presentation. It's obvious that, there will be differences, okay, gender, because slaves, women slaves, and men who were slaves. Naturally, their experiences would be different, right? So, what exactly was your focus in the sense?
Ma'am, what exactly, can you, sir, please pardon, I couldn't hear the question properly. Your voice isn't clear. Can you just repeat the question if you don't mind?
If I heard you correct, you were trying to drive from a point that the women's slaves were again back to their domesticity, whereas men were trying to better themselves in the sense becoming manly, manhood and all. Was that the point that you were trying to make?
Okay. Sir, the paper, like the review that I have done, it shows that both men and women, they both were tortured in different ways. It's not that only men were tortured or only women were tortured. See, there is always a difference. See, it's not always, in fact, but the way things have been presented in this novel, it's like Frederick Douglass, he shows very less attachment towards his family, and he speaks very less of his family in this particular novel, and he shows very less attachment, where he is concerned of his own self everywhere, and he wants to free himself, and he wants to start a life of his own. He doesn't want to look back whatever has happened or whatever is there in terms of everything that has been in his life. But when it comes to Jacobs, she had responsibilities out of the wedlock. She even says that she had children out of the wedlock, which she had to take care, whom she had to take care of, because there was no one like whom they could call as father. So when there was an absence of a male, in her life, she took over the charge and she took over the responsibility to raise her children. Even though they both have faced a lot many things in life, they have, it's like somebody accepts what is coming and somebody rejects what is coming. Douglas was the one who stood strong and he rejected everything that came in his path. But Jacobs was the one who actually accepted certain things, and she tried out to find an amicable way where she could take care of both the things. So that is how they both deal with this rotten institution in two different ways. One is acceptance, one is rejection, but both happen to be a part of resistance that they are working for. Resistance towards slavery, resistance to stop this rotten institution, to put an end to this practice.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for that clarification. But my larger focus was what I was trying to say was that there are multiple ways men and women responded to slavery. Right? You have the famous case of Harriet Tubman, Moses, right? She was called Moses, Harriet Tubman, and there is a whole range of women who became prophets. Oh, question. So yeah, you can go ahead so that you can hear. Yeah. No, it's not a question. I was just making an observation that the response of men and women to slavery is multiple and varied. And good that you chose only two writers or two slaves, former slaves, who struggled with slavery and then, became free. My focus was only to, highlight the multiplicity of, experiences. So it was not always men trying to become manly, okay, and women trying to balance both worlds, okay. That was the point I was trying. Good presentation. Thank you, Dr. Sridevi, for allowing me to speak.
Well, for a maiden presentation, it was pretty good. This was, I believe, a first presentation. Am I audible? Am I audible, ma'am? Yeah. So this was probably her first presentation, and for a maiden one, it was pretty good. But I don't accept the fact that Frederick Douglass in any way rejected slavery. It is something that you accept by making it absent from your life. And when you are a man, you're definitely different from a woman. A woman's lived experience is definitely different from a man's lived experience. A woman slave is exposed to sexual violation, sexual exploitation, whereas a male slave isn't. So the lived experiences are different. So when you are studying, it's an observation, when you are studying these kinds of texts, you must look at the lines that are not there. If you remember Akiba's lecture last evening, Donna Akiba Harper, you know that she has spoken about the absences that are not there. You have to look at the absences elsewhere, which consciously a writer does not express in the writing. You'll have to find out what is expressed and what is not expressed. Somebody cannot reject their own experience, they cannot throw it off. So, how do you see this in both the narratives that we were talking about? This was, in fact, Professor Christopher's question to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for making it very clear. I was so, too bad.
You are not mute. You are not mute.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir, for the observation and the suggestions. Yes.
Ma'am, from here you can. They can. Please be little louder.
Ma'am, there is always a difference between what a man faces and what a woman faces. It's because our bodies are different. We are here in this world for different purposes. We can't actually justify, okay, I am not trying to promote feminism, or I'm not trying to promote like any manliness, or I'm not trying to do that. But I would say that both as slaves, they went through a number of incidents which were quite different in life. They both accepted it to a certain extent, and at a point where they could not take it anymore, that is the saturation point where they both reached, one finally decides to accept whatever comes through. And she even, Jacob says that she could not take that demon anymore and she was overpowered by it. But Douglas refuses to accept it anymore. He stops there and he finds a way out. He tries to find a way out of everything. They both fight, but one silently, the other one is even silent, but the fight can be seen. The resistance can be seen. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, and thank you, Dr. Sridevi, for chairing this session.
No, sir, thank you. It's need not thank me. It's a discussion, where we learn, we exchange ideas. Thank you so much. Now, I think we have come to the end of the session, morning session. And I thank Dr. Kayan for giving me this opportunity to chair this session. It's been a great pleasure to be with you all and to learn from Dr. Shruti Das and my colleague, Dr. Christopher. And also, there were papers, there were ideas, it's good to be here, and I thank the organizers and also thank Dr. Kane once again for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye.